The vid screen flickered, the image of a doughy, flour-dusted human replaced by Admiral Kyler, his triple chin wobbling with barely concealed rage. "Are you telling me," he hissed, scales rippling a sickly green, "that this baker is responsible for the near breach of the Krellian border?" On the other side of the screen, Ambassador Lee smoothed a crease from her immaculate suit. "Admiral, this is a culinary phenomenon. Have you seen the view counts? The demand? These desserts are the hottest commodities this sector's seen in a century." Kyler sputtered, his 3 beady eyes bulging. "Demand? Commodity? What in the nine hells kind of empire builds a strategy around pastry?" Lee chuckled, the sound like steel on ice. "Don't get me wrong, the humans didn't mean to cause this mess, but let's just say there's a reason we call him Sugar Daddy." Meanwhile, in another part of the galaxy, "Welcome, chefs of the cosmos, to the Grand Galactic Bake-Off!" The announcer's voice boomed through the makeshift stadium, a shimmering dome erected on the neutral moon of Xerxes 9. The crowd, a riotous mix of spindly gyrons, floating luminescence, even a hive mind of sentient fungus, seethed with anticipation. And amidst this chaos stood Jake Sugar Daddy Miller, Earth's accidental ambassador. He wiped his sweaty hands on his apron, eyes flicking between the scowling Krellian Empress and the Zeep ambassador, who was practically vibrating with greed. Jake was a baker, not a diplomat, but here he was, a single whisk, his only weapon against interstellar war. The first challenge began. Replicate the legendary Nebula Swirl, a dessert of such complexity it was said to drive lesser beings mad. The Krellians presented a towering mass of writhing tentacles masquerading as cake. The Zeeps offered a glowing orb that hummed ominously. Jake took a deep breath, summoning a memory. Summer sunsets, his grandma's peach cobbler, the simple, perfect joy of it. Hours later, under the judging panel's discerning gaze, the verdicts began. The Krellian dish was deemed technically impressive, emotionally sterile. The Zeep creation apparently tasted like time collapsing in on itself. Then it was Jake's turn. He presented a lattice-topped pie, humble-looking and smelling of spice and sun-warmed fruit. Silence fell. The judges tasted. The Empress's thorns smoothed with surprise. The Zeep ambassador emitted a delighted squeal. Even the sentient fungus let out a contented burble. "This," declared the head judge, "a being whose species hadn't felt joy in millennia, tastes of home." The crowd erupted. News of Jake's victory spread like wildfire across the communication networks. The demand for his recipes, for the secret of his galactic goodies, only intensified. Every species wanted a piece of the pie, so to speak. Ambassador Lee, meanwhile, was a woman with a plan. She saw Jake's success as a culinary victory and a diplomatic opportunity. The empires were squabbling over him like children over a candy bar, the perfect distraction. "Jake," she purred one evening, holographic projections of trade treaties flickering above his kitchen table, "you've got them hooked. Now we reel them in." Jake blinked at the stack of ceasefire proposals and economic pacts. "You mean, I bake peace treaties? Is that even a thing?" Lee winked. "Never underestimate the power of buttercream, my friend." The next Grand Galactic Bake-Off wasn't just about cakes, but collaboration. The challenge: create a dessert that embodies the unique strengths of 2 warring species. Tensions bristled, then slowly eased as the Zeeps, masters of energy manipulation, learned to temper their explosive flavors with the delicate crystalline techniques of the Signians. Jake, a whirlwind of flour and diplomacy, guided, suggested, and most importantly, kept plates of cookies readily available. The results were surprising. Zeepian fire bloom caramelized over airy Signian meringue. A luminescent glow custard balanced by a gravimetric tart base created by the usually territorial Krellians. "This," the judges murmured, their voices thick with awe and possibly a sugar high. "This transcends mere taste. This is unity." The accords were signed days later, not just out of necessity, but from a genuine curiosity sparked by those shared creations. Jake, watching from afar, grinned. Maybe peace wasn't just some pie-in-the-sky dream after all. And so, the sugar daddy didn't just save the galaxy from war, he changed it. Bake-offs became negotiation rooms. Recipes became peace treaties. Once a powder keg of greed and aggression, the universe started to smell faintly of vanilla and cinnamon. After all, as Jake was fond of saying, it's hard to fight with a mouthful of cake. Years passed. Conflicts still sizzled across the galaxy, old habits die hard, but the Grand Galactic Bake-Off became an institution. A symbol that even the most hostile species could find common ground provided a really spectacular dessert was involved. Jake, meanwhile, was no longer just a baker. He was a legend. Whispers told of his top-secret Earth ingredient, which made his creations irresistible. Some even swore there was a touch of magic in his flour-dusted hands. But Jake knew better. His secret, which empires couldn't replicate, wasn't an ingredient, but a feeling. Every pie, cookie, and gravity-defying soufflé was infused with the simple joy he found in baking. It was the taste of sharing, generosity, and making something delicious just because. One star-dusted night, Jake was on a balcony overlooking Xerxes 9, transformed from a barren trading rock to a bustling hub of intergalactic exchange. Ambassador Lee appeared beside him, a faraway look in her eyes. "You changed the course of history with a whisk and a smile, Jake," she said. Jake chuckled. "Nah, it takes more than sugar to make peace. It takes work, understanding, and maybe a bit of extra frosting, just in case." They watched as a Krellian family shared a slice of Zepian star cake, the children giggling, the parents exchanging a hesitant but warm glance. Maybe, Jake mused, the universe just needed to remember how sweet things could be. He didn't become some intergalactic diplomat or travel to the stars on delicate missions. Instead, Jake chose to open a bakery on Xerxes 9, a beacon of sweetness and light. As alien dignitaries, pirates, and ordinary folk lined up for galaxy-famous pastries, Jake knew he'd fought his war and won. Not with blasters and battleships, but with buttercream, a sprinkle of kindness, and a whole lot of hope. Decades turned into centuries, and Jake Sugar Daddy Miller became a figure from a storybook, the baker who saved the galaxy. But the universe is ever-changing, and new threats appear on the horizon. A mysterious blight crept across agricultural sectors, threatening vital food supplies across the outer rim. Panic rippled through trade routes, desperation turning once peaceful colonies into volatile powder kegs. Whispers blamed sabotage, secret bioweapons, and worse. The fragile peace Jake had helped forge was threatening to crack. Into this maelstrom stepped Maya, Jake's great-great-granddaughter. She'd inherited the family bakery, but more importantly, she'd inherited Jake's spark, that stubborn belief that goodness could triumph even in the darkest places. Gathering a motley crew, a gruff old Zepian baker with a temperamental oven, a Krellian scientist with an obsession for fermented frostings, and a luminescent artist with a knack for edible holograms, Maya wasn't just going to bake a fancy cake, she was going to solve this mystery. Their odyssey led them through star charts and smuggling routes, from bustling market worlds to desolate outposts clinging to existence. They baked alongside nomadic tribes on moons of gas giants, shared meals with bioluminescent farmers on jungle planets, and even bartered for clues over a piping hot pastry with a notoriously shady information broker. What they found wasn't some grand conspiracy, but something far more insidious: neglect. Centuries of focus on intergalactic diplomacy meant basic infrastructure had been overlooked. The blight was caused not by malice, but by outdated systems and a disconnect between the central powers and their far-flung colonies. Armed with this knowledge, Maya took to the stage of the Grand Galactic Bake-Off. Her creation wasn't about mind-blowing flavors. It was a simple loaf of sturdy and sustaining bread made with ancient earth grains. Alongside it was a hologram: desperate farmers, starving families, the faces behind the statistics. The Empress used to extravagance, hesitated. Jake's legendary desserts had been about awe, but this was about need. Empress, Maya said, her voice clear in the hushed stadium. This is the taste of neglect. This happens when we're too busy chasing the stars to remember the soil beneath our feet. The crowd shifted, uncomfortable, remembering the desperation before Jake, before the treaties baked with buttercream. One by one, the other contestants presented not confections, but simple foods. Nourishing soups, comforting stews, the flavors of security and stability. Maya understood that change didn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it was as simple and vital as a loaf of warm bread in the hands of someone hungry. In the end, the bake-off wasn't won with points, but with promises. Promises of reform, resource reallocation, and remembering that peace wasn't just the absence of war, but the presence of a good, full life for all. Maya didn't become the new sugar daddy, a hero whispered about in hushed tones. Instead, she was one of many, a baker, a businesswoman, and a citizen of a galaxy who still struggled, but now struggled a little bit less. The bakery on Xerxes 9 became more than just a shop, a training ground. Bakers from struggling colonies learned new techniques, brought back resilient grains and recipes that suited their climates, and carried a spark of hope back to their people. The Grand Galactic Bake-Off continued a vibrant, chaotic celebration of culinary innovation and shared responsibility. There were still setbacks, old grudges, and the ever-present lure of power that threatened to tip the balance. But with each galactic crisis, with every threat, there was an undercurrent of something else. The knowledge that conflict wasn't the only solution. And Jake? Well, legend has it that as an old man, he finally found the top-secret Earth ingredient everyone had been chasing for centuries. It turns out it wasn't hidden in some ancient spice blend or rare extraterrestrial fruit. It was love, pure and simple. The love you pour into food made for someone else. The love of sharing something sweet when the world seems bitter. Centuries later, as children across the galaxy heard the tale of the baker who saved the stars, they understood one thing with absolute clarity. The best battles are fought and won with a heart full of kindness and a piping hot pie in your hands. Hey space travelers, thanks for blasting off with Rocket Ship Radio. We hope this story somewhat satisfies your sweet tooth. If you're ready to dive deeper into the rabbit hole of our amazing sci-fi stories, click the next video and prepare yourself for another adventure. If you want to help us, please hit the like button, subscribe, and activate that notification bell so you never miss an Interstellar transmission. Don't forget to leave a comment below. Tell us what kind of sci-fi tales you want to explore in the future. And as always, safe travels, adventurer.